Welcome back to the most professional StarCraft 2 with the former world champion Terran in the blue. It's Micro Jackson, ByuN, facing off against another former world champion, the Zerg in red. We have Rogue in a best of 5 Terran versus Zerg showdown as part of the playoffs to the $5,000 Team Liquid map contest tournament. And before we get started, it'd be incredible. You could smash that like button, maybe even subscribe. Let me count the algorithm. Give me, what do we have? 1,840 likes on this video, on this cast, and I'll cast another one. And I'll probably do it anyways, because I don't know what else I do with my life. But thank you for watching. Hopefully, you've had a good day so far. And hopefully it's about to get just a little bit better. Than the first Zerglings is the Queen not quite out yet at ByuN. Already bouncing drones around with the first Reaper. One pushed away. A Zergling taken out. The Queen's here to politely yet firmly ask the Reaper to leave, but the Terrans have never been polite, though firm is not a matter I'd like to speculate on as we start things off here on Washout. The Reaper will escape to heal, and one of our largest maps with some of the most curious features. Whether they're bugs remains to be seen how Rogue ends up doing. Oh, I'm trying to sneak up. Don't sneak up on anyone. I don't know. ByuN almost caught, at least interrupting the healing. A precious balance, but back at home, actually getting a starport before a third command center. ByuN significantly more focused on getting aggressive than on just maximizing the economy. Rogue, on the other hand, also hasn't taken a third hatch. So this isn't so far off the beaten path, but it's a bit of a detour to making sure. Okay, well, we've taken a new direction. It's no longer a detour. It's a new road entirely, leading to a lair at 3.5 minutes. Climbing up the tech tree like a bamboo shoot here. Meanwhile, ByuN is still on 2 base as well. Do they know something we don't? And by we, I mean, of course, all the illustrious people watching this. Like and subscribe. But certainly a more technologically focused early game. A Roach Warren is on the way. The fact that ByuN does not have a third command center. He's just building more barracks behind. There's no easy way for Rogue to know that. Rogue is more than likely assuming it's the default Terran build that ByuN has popularized and used for about half of his life. The last 16 years of StarCraft 2. But the 3cc and a Raven? A Raven in this economy? Oh, huh. And he knocks out, wow, he knocks out the Overlord with a Viking. That's so suspicious. The Viking existing at all is suspicious. Most of the time when you go Viking, you're going like Battlecruiser or something. It's clearly indicating, one, it's not Banshee early, but Rogue is going for speed roaches. 2 Overlord, why are you all the way out here? Rogue's like, here's 2 more to keep you busy. And there's a advertisement for the Supernova. Is that the Supernova Men's Club we saw earlier? Ah, furries. But I digress. I don't want to insult most of my demographic, but strong minority, I assume. Roaches popping out speed halfway there. And neither player can be... So, ByuN hasn't even seen the main base at any point. He has not seen the Roach one. Rogue has not, is in the same boat. They're in the dark, and it's full of Terrans. The siege tank has not been spotted. They're both just kind of guessing at what the other is doing. And here's the thing. The end result is a very similar style. A relatively low economy, high unit count mid-game. So Rogue with early speed roaches. And I think he's trying to mask exactly how many he has. Only splits off a few, but more try to chase it down. Finally finish speed, but not in time to chase down the Hellions. Unfortunately, if ByuN was just doing a high-tech like Banshee or even Battlecruiser play, this would be deadly. But with 2 siege tanks back at home tucked into 2 bases, not so much. More than enough to force him to turn around as the Raven, keeping an eye on everything, says, never more, roaches. Well, we'll see, as there's no anti-air except some maybe corrosive bile. Unfortunately, all the roaches were on the other side of the map, trying that ill-fated attack, and now his drone's getting charbroiled back at home. 7 drones dead. The Zerglings will try to intercept, and on the creep, they get a good surround. and should be able to clean this up with relatively minimal losses. Still, this isn't the 4-base 80-drone Zerg. That was a significant percentage of the economy. ByuN is still 2-basing. He just started a 3rd command center. That means his army is a lot to contend with. And the Raven is uniquely dangerous against roaches. The anti-armor missile is not... It's kind of a misnomer. The anti-armor missile just increases the damage each attack deals by 2. You can go into negative armor. So if you think about it like just +2 damage on each attack, and you know what attacks pretty quickly? Stimmed Marines. Especially since roaches have a base armor of 1. It completely negates it and turns it around. So anti-armor missile is an existential threat here, and a lot of the Dorito-dusted Ravagers looking even more intense. Another volley. He's just stimming, and he is winning. The corrosive bile's raining down, but the Marines are tearing through. ByuN just cleaves through the army. One medevac gets clipped. Queen is gunned down. But the 2-base timing, even against Rogue's Mass Roach Ravager. The Raven is finally Edgar Allan Poe. The drones are pulled off the line. Oh no. It's a disaster. The Viking hits the deck. The Predator drones. 13 drones dead, but they might be enough to finally drive this back. What a bloodbath. An absolute slobber knocker in the middle of the map. And it's not done. And we're getting more literal. Here, the Marines paying tribute to the statue to Marines lost, of which already a significant number. 31 Marines dead. About that same number of roaches and ravagers. And Rogue, 61 drones to 52 SCVs. This is a lower middle class budget right here for both sides. Rogue cannot afford to tech up to Hive, though he has an infestation pit. ByuN can't afford to tech up to much more than what he already has, even with mules. And this is a twisty base here. With the gold and blue minerals, there are several of those scattered around the map, giving you a little bit of extra income overall, as it still has 8 mineral patches as opposed to the 6 gold bases usually have. Mules do not mine extra on gold minerals. Terran had like a 70% win rate in GSL for like the 2 months of that. And this is restricted. Come back here, Brenda. Restricted lair space. You can't yell at it to death. Emotional bullying works. Sorry. Meanwhile, ByuN picks up again, but they'll expect some of us in the wreckage. The Marines and the Marauders and even a siege tank are left behind for the Roaches and Ravagers. The drop in the back. ByuN keeping the pressure on. Burrow move is on the way, and very importantly, alongside the Burrow upgrade. They don't give you a prompt saying, you should probably get Burrow if you get Burrow move. It's just expected you'll realize that yourself. Occasionally, players will forget. But, Tunneling Claws Roaches on the way. ByuN trying to batten down the hatches back at home. He's finally getting the 2-2 upgrades. And you can really tell, a game where +2 upgrades are a stretch goal at the 10-minute mark is an intense one, or just, you know, a normal TVP. But in this matchup, upgrades are incredibly important, especially for the Marines and Marauders, but also facing against them. Having something to counteract, as there's a lot of units firing at each other simultaneously. You're less reliant on these big power units, siege tanks kind of notwithstanding, and more on the sheer magnitude, the biomass. And Rogue is maxed out despite everything. Burrow move's not done, but does he need it? The upgrades are the medevac's actually standing their ground, and not for long. What? Rogue may have overestimated his power. Even though he got a few medevacs and some good corrosive biles, the siege tanks adding a lot of damage. Stutter stepping through. The couple supply depots here eating some of the hits as well. Another set of corrosive biles will knock out a siege tank. But overall, Rogue not able to get a decisive victory in that fight, though probably knows that ByuN, if he's sitting back, he's getting more upgrades. He's getting a better unit composition and more production. Rogue is still on 67 drones. His income is marginally better, and his units are significantly worse, especially as time goes on. But ByuN, we have to pull the boys. Will we see the reverse? That's a lot of Marauders mixed in. 2-2 upgrades about 20 seconds out. But a stim is used. The medevac's on the back line. Microing back the siege tanks, adding so much damage. The Ravagers will be able to take out one. The boys are pulled off the line. The workers on the front lines yet again. He's pushed all the way back, but the Marines and Marauders are standing their ground. The upgrades are completing, and the Zerg will be stopped here and now, and the Mules will drop in the first moment of safety. Trying to turn it around. Rogue yet again. The Zerglings out in front, but it's too little, and it's too late. Though, a single battle is lost, but the war, ByuN, still in a mildly uncomfortable spot, though he might not know it. As ByuN he did spot the lair, and more importantly, it upgrading to Hive on the other side. An Ultraless Cavern on the way alongside Adrenal Glands. Part of the reason Rogue's attack was maybe not as successful as he could have hoped, was he was teching up towards Hive Tech. The Ultras, more upgrades. The sort of unit composition that scales a lot better than holding down the R key like you're a pirate. So, instead he's going to put on his robe and wizard hat and try some spell casting. And we all know how strong infestors can be. Unfortunately, though, I've checked the numbers. I've run it past, and Rogue is not named Cyril. This is a science fact, which significantly decreases the effectiveness of Zerg spellcasters, but especially considering ByuN has been on 60 SCVs or less for pretty much the entire game, he can't get ghosts. Liberators are an economic stretch goal at best. He's getting a 4th base now, and it isn't his main command center, so he's going to have a little bit more income. And he's had a bit of time to consolidate his forces because Rogue sat back and built up his economy again. It's taken the pressure off, but the creep has continued to spread. He's not had many queens throughout this game. He didn't have the 7, 8, 9 queen sort of start that you often do in a more macro-oriented play. He had 2 hatches, and one of them was building a lair and then a hive. So there's a grand total of 3 queens, and which means you can't just be doing this, Brenda. It's Apple Maps, I swear. I don't don't worry. Nobody plays this game on a Mac. It's owned by Microsoft. How do you know that? Sorry. Spire. Rogue, literally and figuratively, looking to cover all his bases. ByuN, with more Marauders than anything else, which is not a rare sight for him. We'll spot the Ultras. They're hard to miss, but... And burrowed Zerglings being used, as well as Changelings, in order to keep track of ByuN's army. I do love this usage of burrow. It's very easy to set up, compared to, say, burrowed Banes, or even trying to use the tunneling claws. And allows you to keep tabs on the army in ways that a lot of Terran players aren't really thinking of. Meanwhile, a few Zerglings at the 6 o'clock base. Things, in some ways, slow down, but in other ways, heat up. Mostly the supply, the banks, the upgrades overall, as ByuN has completed +3 infantry weapons and armor for his M&M build over here, but... Well, there's no Baneling speed, and he's off of creep, but a single fungal could end the game instantaneously. No fungals could end it the other way, probably not as quickly. And he gets it. The Ultras will cleave through. ByuN takes out another one, but losing track of things. And that means he's going to lose 40 supply. The expiration date on Marines and Marauders, at least on their own, is quickly approaching. Though ByuN will try to push it back as long as possible. And occasionally you can push it back. Really? The most ambitious Baneling. Sends out a small task force up to the north side. There's Whittle Mines and Zerglings burrowed throughout the map. One of them more dangerous to passing units than the other. But the Banelings get into the 6 o'clock and actually 13 SCVs down. A planetary not completed. ByuN's at 52 workers. He just built 4 more command centers and he cannot easily afford to put them all into orbitals. It's a tenuous time for the Terran economy. Rogue, on the other hand, has 86 drones. He has, 8, 9 hatcheries? 6 hatcheries with 1 more on the way. But, typical Terran overestimating. The Ultras cleaving through, the Fungals hold things down. The Infestors above the ground, just keeping them there. And the Ultras caught a little bit between a rock and a hard place, though. They have +3 armor and chitinous plating, but it doesn't seem like the Marauders care too much. Bashing through another planetary fortress, opening up the 6 o'clock base. The command centers will land back down, but Rogue swings around yet again. Okay, all right. Forces the command center into the air. Ravagers. Pops one, but knocks down the Liberator. Ravager's your anti-Liberator, your anti-tank in a pinch. But as time goes on, well, Rogue is already upgrading flyer attack. He's planning for the future. Meanwhile, ByuN does not even have a Ghost Academy. So he's locked into this ghostless composition, which it doesn't have that sort of cost-effectiveness, that stopping power that Ghosts do. But it's also significantly less expensive. So the Marauders, a few caught by Fungal, but that may bait Rogue into a less than ideal fight. The sheer amount of firepower. Whereas those Ultras had, no, it's not going to work. The Ultras just go flying apart in many more pieces than they arrived. Meanwhile, a few more going to take out the Planetary, but a Liberator takes one alongside it. A drop? No, not a drop. He just walked on his legs like any other man. Takes out the base down the center. They trade. Those units going to go to rehab or the units lost tab momentarily. I think it's more likely to be the second one. The creep is spread across the map. Neither player's looking over here. The pathfinding is concerning at best. The base itself, one shot. I don't even know if that was ByuN shooting it or if Rogue just took it out so he could restart it. I always feel like if a base is at 10% and you're not desperate, just build a new one. Like, it feels like a liability at that stage, and having a full HP base is usually better. Rogue now has over 2,000 more resources per minute, but ByuN is maxed out with 142 versus 114 army supply. Again, though, it isn't that Ghost style where a firing line of psionic musketeers can just gun down half of your units, potentially, well, completely invisible. Instead, they do it the old-fashioned way with rocket launchers or grenade launchers or whatever the Marauders have. The Zerglings counterattack, no planetary, which means the Venn diagram of Liberators is only going to moderately annoy the numbers here before the Zerglings easily take out the SCVs. The Whittle Mine does a lot more work. He doesn't have Drilling Claws, which seems like a pretty significant oversight. It's not like he has a small amount. Hey, some Changelings. In the pipe, all jacked up and good to go. What? We can't say that anymore. It has weird yeah, in the pipe 5x5. I don't know. Those Changelings are actually doing a great job of cosplaying Marines here. And ByuN hasn't noticed. Rogue may notice his drones are under attack, though. As a single Marine denying a base, yet another hatchery easily going to be taken out. No cancel. Not a huge difference in the grand scheme of things compared to the potential implications of this fight. ByuN is spread thin, but is it thinly enough? The Lings, Banes, and Ultras are bearing down on the base. The SCV's intensely vulnerable. He picks up. He'll evacuate the Marines and Marauders. What few he can. The corrosive biles are completely off the mark. He completely whiffs it. And on the other side, ByuN takes out the base to the 12 o'clock. He's working on the third now, but running right into the jaws of the Ultras. The Zerglings boxy it out. He picks up, and he's going to drop the base like a Skrillex album. The main is vulnerable. The Baneling Nest of all things. Kind of critical at this stage, and will be taken out. The Hive might be next on the agenda. The Infestors, a Fungal from the low ground. Helps the Ultras on the high. Another attack over to the right side, but the Marines and Marauders stand their ground for long enough. Reinforcements streaming across. The drones are vulnerable, and even though most of the Marines and Marauders were taken out of the main, the rest, the Infestors just ran into them, which means Rogue just got his most important unit count reset. 0 Infestors remain. He lost the base over to the right and to the north. And ByuN did not lose any of his mining, which means after 10 minutes of Rogue maintaining the economic lead, ByuN has just carved out an advantage for himself, despite the excruciating losses across the entire map. There's still the elephant in the room. And no, we're not talking about your mother, but 9 Ultralists on the way across. The Corruptors are working on taking out the Liberators, but they're doing a lot to help out in the process. And the Corruptors themselves outflanked by a missile turret. He drops a stable of mules. 8 SCVs were taken down, but the Mule Canyon will continue to carve a concerning chasm in the income disparity. And Rogue has gone from potentially battering ByuN into oblivion to making him look be unstoppable, be unbreakable, be understanding the situation. He doesn't even need to ByuNker up. He's gonna ByuNker down. He's no longer the ByuNderdog. Oh, I'm done. I'm not a rep. And here we go, right down the center. I don't know, Kev. An optimistic attack. He's just trying to break through. The Ultras, there's no Infestors with this. The Liberators holding the line, but not for long. The Ultras break through. The battering ram of Zerg. Is there enough to turn the tables? No. ByuN's gonna chase. The Ultras split. Orbital commands up in the air just like this game. 138 to 133 supply. But ByuN is not going to give Rogue the opportunity to back off. He's moving forward. Because if Infestors come out, then his supply could take a incredible hit. He sits back for now. 30 SCVs, even with mules. 6 orbital commands, but he does still need scans. They're important to his plans. Unless his Marines and Marauders are able to dance away from the Banelings. The Ultra count, 6 of them. The supply is still concerningly close for Rogue. He still has the worker lead. He's managed to retake hatcheries throughout the map. How many has he lost so far? 6 hatcheries. I think a couple were cancelled. ByuN has lost several command centers and obviously the worker count. And finally the Serral Fester, burrowed beneath. Does he see the worm sign? There's a single missile turret here. I think he's just out of the detection range. And yet again, the Corruptor count was reset with that fight. He didn't want to build too many, but now he has too few. The drops easily pick up and get out. The Ravagers are a thing of the distant past. And base is starting to mine out. And the newest ones are going to be forced even further towards the center. Infestor directly underneath the army, which is actually not where it wants to be. Look at that spread from ByuN. I can't believe it's not butter. He's nearly maxed out. Rogue has retaken the economic plateau. But still, he doesn't have too much economy himself. 57 drones and a tenuous amount of bases mining. So, using the Infestor as a scout is a bold move. Oh, no. Oh, that has to be so close. Another missile turret at the front. I think for the fact that ByuN doesn't have drilling claws is a significant oversight at this stage of the game. He has 9 Widow Mines, 10. I don't think he's noticed there's not really been an obvious opportunity to check that the Widow Mines don't remain cloaked after firing. And that means that Rogue has gotten away with 1 Overseer. He's lost 8. But that's one of the things that is kind of a tax on the Zerg in the late game. Is their detection costs gas. And most Zerg players are not particularly careful about keeping their Overseers out of the front line. Because the price of not having it there is usually much higher. The Infestor just dies. Casually scanned as ByuN is slow turret pushing with just Bio and Widow Mines. Another base, dropping another volley of mules. And we're maxed out again! The losses have been incredible. But we're not done yet. There's still plenty of minerals and gas to throw away. I mean, to throw into the fray. That was the script. I'm sorry. 11 Zerglings, 7 Ultralists, and 1 Infestor to rule them all. From the darkness, unburrow and bind them. Though, he may have spotted it. That Widow Mine still... That's so many Banelings. Neither player can afford to rebuild even a fraction of this. Well, a small fraction of the army. Don't be pedantic. Only 1,000 minerals and 100 gas in the bank for Rogue. ByuN is killing his own Marines to build Widow Mines and Liberators, which feels a bit gratuitous. But Rogue, with the full screen surround, get off your phone, get on your 4K monitors, or TVs, or whatever. Who watches on a TV? Actually, a significant amount. Thank you for watching. He wants to break this. And here we go! From all sides! Or about as close as he could get. The Widow Mines thinning things out, but the Banelings still rolling through. The Infestor, nowhere to be seen, way too late to the party. But the Banelings, another Widow Mine not quite in position to deal with this. The main brunt, Infestor still waiting for its moment. The Ultras, there's another bit of bio over to the side. Rogue has refilled. ByuN has been blasted back. Not enough time with the orbital command, and this time, ByuN didn't have a counterattack ready to force him away. Where did the Infestor go? It's still waiting. There's no Corruptors. A few Zerglings broke through, and ByuN trying to hold his ground with units definitely not known for it. He only had a few Widow Mines, and again, no Drilling Claws. He had maybe 1 or 2 Liberators, but he has units that are great on dodging away, but the Infestor just dies, but the Ultras are chewing their way through. The Widow Mine's getting dragged into the Terran army, at least getting dragged away from the Ultras. But the fact is, it's 180 to 156 supply. I was going to make a confident statement in the impending outcome, but the Corruptors knocking down a couple medevacs nearly full of Marine Marauder, and that tilts the supply scales maybe a bit too wildly. Through all the fire and fury, through the over 100,000 resources lost in not even half an hour, Rogue has nearly maxed out yet again. ByuN a long way away, and there might not be Infestors to keep him in place, but he's running out of real estate. The Ultras are chasing him all the way back to his main base. He's caught on the corner. The Marauder's badly bruised. The stim's certainly not helping. A single-space ramp is maybe a bit too much of a squeeze for the Ultras. But another base will be denied. A single drop takes out yet another hatch. That's hatchery number 8. Still on the other side, 4 command centers have been taken down. Another one is burning. Carrick is burning. The mules are dropped, and there's almost no more mineral patches to drop them at. A planetary fortress is down the center. ByuN still has a comparable army supply. He's on mule stimulus checks, and once those run out, the Infestor trying to stay out of range. He needs it to be unburrowed in the right spot, and it is! He gets the catch! He gets the kills! He'll cleave right through the army! The Ultras are too much, and there's not enough to stop them. The Liberators still taking more than their pound of flesh, but there's tons where that came from. ByuN drowns in Zerg, and Rogue prevails in game number 1. 736 Zerglings, 24 Ultras, 229 Marines, and 130 Marauders. 120,000 resources lost. But Rogue won. So, well, a strong game to start things off, but Rogue won't have to go back to the spawning pool and rebuild, but instead ByuN. It's hard as Terran when you're playing that ghostless style, well, by requirement or by choice, to transition into the actual ultra late game, pun somewhat intended. Not having drilling claws, not having ghosts, not having a fusion like he didn't have those upgrades that caused balance complaints and ill-fated debates in the comments. Thank you for engaging. I don't. All he had were some of the most malleable units whose greatest strength is mobility. But if they're anchored to one spot, well, the Ultras can throw their weight around. And they got a lot of inertia. Rogue going with a classical style of Zerg against ByuN's very on-brand Terran. My favorite part, and the most relevant part for me, just This is mine. I can say what I want. The first 8 minutes or so, where both of them, on what is clearly a very macro-oriented map, went for 2 base timings. I don't know how much they were playing the matchup, how much they were playing each other. These two are some of the most evenly matched players. I checked it beforehand, and if I am not suffering from short-term memory loss, which is a possibility in this advanced age, but it's nearly exactly 50% between these two over 10 years or more of playing. So clearly both trying to get a jump and ending up in a near dead even scenario. That easily could have gone the other way. If ByuN was a bit more on the ball, or if he just found a bit more damage, like the drops in the mains, if the fungal had not landed and he still had 40 supply instead of 15 in those medevacs, that could have spiraled out of control so quickly. Because even though Rogue had corruptors, the struggle for anti-air is the constant debate for Zerg. And by that I mean, it's not just having anti-air. Sometimes the problem is you have too much. If you make too many corruptors, or have too many queens in the wrong spot, then your ground army just loses to their ground army. But if you build too few, they start flying around in circles and you just get dizzy. Hurt yourself in your own confusion. So, Rogue managing that just well enough. Though the corruptors certainly... I was whelmed. I was whelmed by the corruptors. I've spoken. And I will continue to, because that's this... Yep, that's more like it. ByuN, game 2? Nah. 3cc. Before Starport. Before even the second command center is done. The greediest CCC while still getting the barracks and the factory. I think we're going to see a lot of this mental jousting between these two. Rogue with an even quicker lair. I'm going to say ByuN pushes the economy, goes for the economy. He goes for the greedier build. Rogue goes for the even more aggressive build. So what is this? He hasn't added any gas geysers. He hasn't added a roach warren. Hydras? So, gas geysers are kind of required if you're going Mutas, or even if you're going Roach Ravager. Well, Roach Warren is required to go Roach Ravager. You can quote me. You can jot that down. That one's free. Like and subscribe for more top-tier tips. Like, if you want roaches, build a Roach Warren. If you don't want to lose, try winning. I've seen those comments. Any 2 more guesses? I think this is Hydras. Cyril has popular... Yeah. Cyril has shown that Hydra's a legitimate choice if you can hit your timings. They've always been a legitimate choice, but specifically as an aggressive unit, as opposed to just kind of your macro composition. Are you okay? No. Overlord gets taken out. And curiously, well, one, worst of both worlds. So Rogue showed he had a lair. He was building an Overseer. That means ByuN knows there's a lair. Now, does he know what it is? Oh, but then a Zergling gets up the ramp and spots the rest. But the Viking, again, he didn't go Banshee, nor Raven. The Viking to mask this and make it unclear if it's the same style or something different. And killing Overlords is also a plus. Hydra range first. And are we going to see +1 ranged attack? Carapace. So Rogue kind of hedging his bets. Meanwhile, ByuN, double engineering bay, 3 racks. He's got the double medevacs on the way. The 3-2-1-1. Well, 3-3-1-1. Just a normal kind of 3 CC build, nothing in particular. Whoa, he lights up his own Reaper to kill a creep tumor. He caught the tail end of that friendly fire. In the most literal sense. See, this is what happened to the Goliath. Oh my. Now that's just copyright infringement. Oh, that's from Star Battle, the beloved series based on StarCraft. As you can see here, the Moopy is taking down, somehow, an advanced war machine with sticks and stones and merchandising. Meanwhile, the Hydras will eventually pick off the Reaper, which is more of a consolation prize. Rogue, 66 drones exactly. And now making infestors, even got an infestation pit, and Hydras almost exclusively. Hydra speed is now completed. Oh, did he spot this? He would not be sitting there. He's going to lose the hatch. Let's see if he gets the cancel, but losing the 4th hatch is not a total disaster, but it's certainly not great. Because that 4th hatchery is less for your economy, though it's important, but also for your production. Just having enough units on the field. As, again, Rogue with a very light on the queens. Only 3 queens, now adding a 4th. So, barely any creep spread. Focused on mass unit production. He's going to so many Hydras. 18 Hydras already. Meanwhile, ByuN with a very... I mean, it's a Terran build, alright? If Terrans can't do the same build order they've been doing for 15 years at least, then they get upset. So that's why they made it so you can't abduct siege tanks anymore. Lurker Den. The Marines and tanks are headed across. Relatively quiet thus far. I'm reasonably convinced that Rogue wanted to go across the map with the Hydras, but ByuN just offered no opportunity. Two upgrades have already begun. ByuN with... It's a deadly army. There's no hive. It's barely halfway there. So no Vipers to work with. He's down by an upgrade. There's not that many Zerglings to potentially draw the tank fire. And here we go. Coming in from several sides. The Infestors are really the multiplier here he might need for his forces. Holds down the Marines. The siege tank's helping out. And you know what? Holding down the Marines instead of having them firing back at you. Seems like it made all the difference. A decisive victory on the field for Rogue. ByuN not even bothering to stand and fight. I think that cost him so much. 27 Marines dead for 1 Hydra. And the Zerglings, but they're expendable. It's true. Lurker Den. Lurker range is on the way. And did he spot the hive? No, ByuN has not even looked in the main base. Nidus network is on the way. And that could be just a game-winning move. In fact, there's so much space in the main base here. ByuN putting most of his barracks on the edges and at the natural, interestingly. Down the center. Cancels another hatch. Gets some of the creep. Fungal way off the mark. Lurkers. 6 lurkers already completed. Nidus is done. Rogue has 75 drones. But ByuN at 72 SCVs. So, comparable economies. Though again, ByuN does not have ghosts. Nor a ghost academy. So he's entirely focused on a very strong fighting army. But lurkers have a way of making that difficult. The SCVs are pulled. Marines with reinforcements. The Hydras will box out the drop, but the main attack. He'll spot the lurkers, but that's enough siege tanks to make things difficult. Huge fungal down the center, but not quite enough to follow it up. 9 SCVs dead to the Zergling counterattack. ByuN rotates around, and the lurkers not moving into position quite yet. They don't have quick burrow completed. 3 siege tanks at a time for ByuN. The lurkers burrow down. The mineral line is vulnerable. The hatchery is stuck in between it all. The Hydras are just running into it. There's no Vipers. A Nidus in the main base simultaneously. Bit of a desperation move out of Rogue. He just dives forward. A huge commit. And I think it's going to pay off. He target fires the infestors with the siege tanks, but the lurkers will eviscerate the rest. And ByuN, he found out a lot of damage, but Rogue managed to turn it around, and the lurkers sliced through the rest. A knight is shut down in the main. Seems like a siege tank or two back at home helped out a lot. But ByuN, his composition does not age well. Mostly because it dies horribly to lurkers before it survives for very long in any of these fights. Again, we're in that scenario where Rogue is slowly but surely working up to hive tech. And ByuN is still building the same things. And make no mistake, Marines and tanks and Marauders can work. It's a lot of firepower, and all it takes is one kind of miscued fight from Rogue to be in a very uncomfortable position. But as time goes on, Rogue is making himself more comfortable. The lurker count continues to grow. Which, changelings getting mixed in there. Rogue's so good with the changelings, whether it's 1 or 100 of them. The Zergling counter, a Nidus just thrown in to keep things busy. Why not? Just in case. If one of them gets through, that's just a win right there. The lurkers! Whoa! Misting the Marines on the way. The lurkers getting closer and closer. 3 Vipers in production. Siege tank on the high ground. Lurkers do not have vision. And trying to get close enough to the tank, but another tank. And the concave here. Was that a Viking? Optimistically landing like it's a cinematic. But more lurkers are trickling through, and ByuN just gives up his position. Rogue, with his incredibly well-placed changeling, which will survive to die of old age, which is about 3 minutes, will let him see the whole army moving. Lets him split his lurkers to maximize their effect. A couple in the natural. The one in the 4th base is taken out. The one in the 3rd has forced the entire base itself to lift. The Marines, oh no, the scan ran out, and there's no Raven to be seen. ByuN is scrambling. 51 SCVs. Now, Rogue, again, does not have an overwhelming economy. 68 drones, which is against 54 SCVs. The siege tank count has been maintained for most of this. He's going to double digits. The lurker count is down to 7, though Rogue is shoring it up. The creep spread is almost non-existent, as all 3... No, the lurkers will die in the dirty puddle of muddy water and now blood. Well, the blood was after the... Anyways, the Marines, the drones transferring through. They tried to hide in the corner, but they died there instead, which I guess counts. Parasitic bombs across the board will likely kill those medevacs. Another Nidus over to the west. The medevacs go down, some with Marines inside, and Rogue is cleaning up most of the attack. More Marines rallied across, which seems optimistic. I don't know if that lurker's on hold position or not. Or hold fire. One lurker on hold fire could do a lot of damage, but you really need 2 or 3 to get it done in and of itself. The sheer amount of siege tanks is so damn high. He's got 11 siege tanks. The lurkers boosts away the medevac. One shot from the Hydras. Nidus at the back, but the siege tank covers the entire base almost perfectly, and he's got another Nidus defense team back at home now, dedicated to the cause. Not sure if the Vipers did this much damage to the hatchery, or if that was mostly the work of ByuN's Marines and Marauders. Probably a bit of both. Team effort. But Rogue has finally kind of stabilized what ByuN has as well. And again, notably, no Ghost Academy, no Fusion Core. Just mass siege tank. And there are Vipers above. But the siege tanks are beautifully spread. The lurkers will work their way forward. Doesn't want to waste the blinding clouds on a single tank. The tank line is a little deeper here. He knows the Vipers are above, but he has nothing to directly deal with it. Another Nidus over to the left side. 11 lurkers, but the siege tank still. And since you can't abduct them, A lurker underneath. Gonna slice through a few more. Another wave of lurkers is being built. But ByuN? The lurkers suffer from the same issues. You divide them too thinly, and the army can just collapse on them and run it over before there's enough damage. ByuN, not intimidated. He's waiting for his moment. In fact, he unburrowed a few lurkers. ByuN splits and stims, and he takes out a few more. The tanks are moving forward against them, and the Vipers are keeping their powder dry. Finally uses a blinding cloud, goes for more. Lurkers move forward. All of them balled up. All his eggs in one basket here. Whereas ByuN looking to divide and conquer. The drop at the back, 3 medevacs full of Marines and Marauders, and the lurkers in the midfield, not on top of any of the economy. The lurker debt is cut down. There's enough for 1 parasitic bomb. Will force it away, trying to quarantine the medevacs, not exactly succeeding. Some of the Marines will be left behind. 14 drones dead. Rogue with 66 left. The rally point is precarious. And the lurkers, on their own, will be chased down. The concussive shells just breaks their spindly knees. They don't want to be coming through the Valley of Death here. He goes to the other side, takes a slight detour, and will easily gun down the rest of the lurkers. Missile attacks level 2. Wow. Just now. ByuN's been working with a multi-upgrade advantage this whole time. And that explains a whole lot of this. While lurkers are great, the Marines and Marauders taking just that few percent extra damage each time is certainly adding up. The numbers don't lie, and they spell disaster for Rogue. He lost his lurker deck. That was what was holding the tide of Bio back, and now the rainfall and the Bio combined might be enough to drown it. The army supply in favor of the Terran. 3-3 against 2-3 upgrades. But Hydras, and still the surviving lurkers, picks off one more. The income. ByuN is running out of minerals, though. We could be, yet again, in that incredibly low economy scenario. ByuN, the lurker debt is rebuilding in exactly the spot. That's the designated lurker spot. All right, there are rules here. One medevac, and he's cornered. 3 medevacs of bio, but that's going to anchor a whole lot of units at the back too. One of them is a strong gust of wind away. See, this is how this happens. This is how the Moopies have such. Ooh. One lurker burrows. The rest of the army's piling down. The lurkers are a little bit late to the party and now might be wishing they weren't invited at all. Where are the Vipers? Just in time. He loses one. Blinding cloud. Helpful. Blinding cloud on the back. Gets another. There's 2 on that one siege tank on the high ground. Finally uses all the energy on the Vipers. And again, ByuN will break on this same location. But wait! The stab at the back. And Rogue. Again, the lurker debt is vulnerable. 2 in a row. Oh, no. And the Hydra den. This time, he cut out the entire family tree of the Hydra species. There will be no more Hydras. He'll be left with Zerglings. And does he have a Bane nest? Yes. Wait. Was that the... No, that was the Evo chamber. Never mind. All right. They all look alike to me. No, they don't. I just forgot what was there. Which is worse to admit. Both now sound bad. Moving on. Jimmy, edit that out. And he keeps dropping. Another curious lurker den location. And Rogue is down to 57 drones. He's down 20 supply. He's down to 2 mining bases, but one of them, you got to be careful not to inject too hard or it might keel over. Which, yeah, important. Meanwhile, the main command center is in flight. So if you thought that ByuN was swimming in minerals and gas, okay, maybe, but you can't transfer them for minerals here. No market to speak of. And Rogue, if he couldn't get it done with a better economy, it's not getting much easier. Another lurker. The Hydras themselves still quite good, especially with the blinding clouds to back them up. You can't underestimate mass Hydra with blinding cloud. But ByuN seems to be not be underestimating. But he'll be estimating quite well. Rogue was thought about consuming that hatchery and maybe realized at the last moment it wasn't the ideal. Still 11 tanks. The siege tanks spread across the map, pushing forward. The Marines and Marauders boxing out the Hydras. The Vipers still a little bit late to the front. Blinding Cloud misses the mark. There was a fungal involved. Lunges forward. And did he lunge forward to victory, or he'll take out the tanks, but the thinner the armies get, the less supply. And the hatchery just gets taken out, toppled easily. Just runs away with the bio. And ByuN has taken the economic lead. He has an equal amount of workers. He has mules. And he took out one of Rogue's only mining bases. Another lurker, but the siege tanks scatter throughout. The Blinding Cloud is good. The Infestor goes out, or goes down, rather. More like explodes into itty-bitty fleshy pieces, but we don't say that. We can't say that anymore. There are kids watching, incidentally, in the background while their grandparents are enjoying the game that people used to play on something called a personal computer. Yes, we used to own computers, like houses or land, back in the olden days. Okay, Grandpa. Rogue is down 60 supply. It's been a brutal fight. 48 lurkers dead. 22 siege tanks. 300 marines. A massacre on both sides. And there's still plenty of bases to mine. But I think ByuN has a near insurmountable advantage. If he doesn't run directly into half a dozen lurkers with his entire army, into, not around, into. Because lurkers on their own are not enough. Parasitic bomb for the medevacs who've already done their job. And it's too little. It's too late. And it will not be 2-0. $11 medevacs still. He's consuming the hatchery that's about... G! One game for ByuN. But you need more than that to win a best of 5. In case you haven't done the math yet. Another hectic brawl. But Rogue kind of losing track of his lurkers, and ByuN, he thrives on the chaos. If you could divide the map or the fights into like 4 or 5 different fights simultaneously or near simultaneously, that is where ByuN is strongest. Whereas the direct fights, he does not prefer that. He'd rather throw everything out there and see if anything slips through, rather than committing it all to one big engagement. Rogue is a bit more strategical and focused on finding the right build and the right time. And I really think he wanted to do a Hydra all-in, but then he realized he was up against already the mass marine tank, which is not going to work. It's not going to happen. If they went Hellion Banshee and then added production, then the Hydras can hit a timing before you reach a critical mass. But he didn't. So he didn't. And then he didn't. Welcome to Mad Libs, where you can fill in the words yourself, and as long as it sounds confident, and you should like and subscribe and say, what a cromulent commentary you have, Winter. Just, at first, I was befuddled, and now I'm enlightened. And many more things that we can't describe here without getting demonetized. It's provocative. It gets the people going. Rogue with... a little bit of gasless time here on Storm Surge with our Storm Drain down the center. The speed zone of sorts. See if they end up fighting against the current or working for it. Kind of poor civic design there to have a Storm Drain go both directions and meet in the middle, but, you know, typical. Exhausting. But ByuN especially no stranger to playing sometimes multi-hour series. Best of threes, even. He's done it for a decade and a half, and I see no signs he's not going to continue. Slowed a bit, heading towards the other side. I don't think it's quite as devastating as it was. Am I lying? Is it not a speed zone anymore? Let's see. I guess the other side. It's a bit slower. It might not be slower. Maybe they took that out. Too many players complained. Once Clem lost to Hero because his Marines and Marauders were pushed into the charge lots, had to go. What? 2 drones to a Reaper? And I was busy talking about storm drains? The true sewers of commentary. But you don't expect that. It's gonna... Rogue, Game 1, Lair 330. Game 2, Lair 310. Game 3, Lair 245. The Lairs will continue being faster until morale improves. What now? What is this? Is it... It's not... Burrow? No. He really wants to go Hydras. This is pretty much the fastest lair you can get, while still building at least 2 queens, like a queen before lair. He's getting Zergling speed, but it might be a fake. The 2 gases on the low ground. The lair was spotted. The timing of the lair was spotted. There's the Hydra Den. I can't wait for lair before queen next game. There's a physical limit on how quickly you can get a lair, and we have not yet reached it. Though, the reason you don't go for a lair before queen is then you just lose... Well, you already lost 2 drones to a Reaper, so how much worse could it get? Well, more. Because if you don't have a queen early on one of your bases, they're just going to kill half the mineral line. Or force you not to mine from there. The scan correctly guessing that Rogue was going to build at his natural. It's Hydras. Again. But this time even quicker. Alright, a bit of a Hydra risk. Because ByuN's just walking... Okay, they're not slower at all. That was like the first version of the map. I like that version. I guarantee you pro gamers didn't. Now that's an odd quirk with the creep. The creep, for those who don't know, I feel like I should explain this more often because it's not obvious. Creep does not provide vision. It's just the creep tumors oozing out. But if the creep tumor is killed, you immediately lose vision of that area. It's not when the creep recedes. The creep itself gives a speed bonus. But the creep tumors have eyes. Where? Don't worry about that. But until the creep tumor has vision, the map is dark and full of Terrans. So, that is the relevant point. And the creep tumor has slightly less vision than the edge of the creep. It's maximum spread, that is. So you can gauge it pretty well. As long as, even if your toes are dangling in the creep, which I pose this question often, but you think creep is more slimy or spongy? Or maybe like imagine Jell-O, but with like a filmy crust. Find out more on my Dronely fans. So after you like and subscribe. Alternatively, like and subscribe to make me stop talking about creep. Well, we'll be working both ends, if you would. Speaking of Niduses, no intention yet, just a bunch of Hydras. And how many is a bunch? Like 25 Hydras. That's a bushel of Hydras there. Meanwhile, ByuN, it's just Marine. It's like Marine mod, literally just Marines. He has 40 Marines. He is building a siege tank and medevacs. But it's literally just Marines right now. 1-1 upgrade's done. Hydra speed and +1 carapace for Rogue, who's at 52 drones. This is a Hydra all in. If this does not work, he has to do critical damage. And ByuN does not realize that. That is 26 Hydras. Okay, he's fighting directly, but there's more Hydras. Well, Hydras aren't that good, though. The medevacs are getting caught. And each group of this, it looks like it'll get cleaned up. The Marines, I think, right? Well, he yanks the siege tank down, speeds it into position. Eventually gets the medevac, but ByuN's at 69 SCVs, which puts him in a nice position economically, but, yeah, that's still, the fact is true. Rogue has to do damage right now. The longer he waits, the harder it gets. Contaminate! A tactical goop will delay another siege tank, and that means only one tank and a bunch of Marines to try to stave this off. 16 Hydras, 30 Zerglies, the tank unsieges at a less than convenient time. The Marines out in front, but only one tank is not really going to intimidate. Though, he's trying to open up the wall here. The tank, not being targeted on the Hydras, finally finds an angle. ByuN is going to have to pull SCVs. He will lose many of them. The Marines in an awkward corner. Yet another siege tank comes up, but the Hydras are well spread. GGG! It's not enough. They were telegraphed too hard. Like it's 1874. And I will... Rogue is such a professional that he just filled in his Gs. I just want to point that out. He may not have won the game, but he has now typed 4 Gs after 2 losses. So, to give him some credit, or credit is due. Was it intentional? I choose to believe yes. As we go into... Ooh, I haven't seen this one. It's a new map from the team. Like new as in, I don't think I've cast it yet. But ByuN takes the lead, 2-1, and Rogue is now in the... I'm ready for the 1-minute lair. So you have to get a spawning pool, 150 minerals, and 100 gas. It's an extractor trick, which physically requires at least like a minute and a half if you were to do it on one base. I don't think it's realistic to see a quicker lair than this, but... we will see. Old Sun Temple. To the sun-worshipping Protoss, I assume. Meanwhile, I believe this is a 4-player map. Indeed it is. Now, I'm not sure... There's a... a summoning watchtower with 4 speed zones outside it. Which is an interesting... we'll see if that factors in. That is... I've got nothing else. A mineral wall at the 3rd. The Overlord is headed towards the right direction, but there's no way you could know that until moments from now. ByuN with a command center first. Rogue is going to spot it very early, which is incredibly lucky for him. And if he's very fast on pulling the Overlord back, the... ByuN... I don't think saw it. So, Overlords have a little bit more vision. Air units usually have more vision than ground units. That's the whole thing, because they fly. I don't need to explain this. Unlike someone, Brenda. Susan, not... You really shoehorned that one in. Yeah, we need shoes. Because we can't fly. Shut up! You're subverting expectations with it. Sorry. I am... Hive mind took it. Anyways, air units have slightly more vision. So that means that ByuN didn't see the Overlord just because the Overlord saw him. Now, you can of course be on high ground locations like these little pervert pillars right at the front where it requires the high ground vision. But in this case, ByuN not knowing where Rogue spawned is something. Is it going to matter? Well, Rogue's not doing any sort of early aggression. Now, the most important part here for Rogue is less that ByuN doesn't know and more that Rogue knows it was a command center first. which limits the possible options. ByuN is doing exactly what you might expect ByuN to do, which is command center first into a bunch of Marines with stim and medevacs, but Rogue knows it's not going to be like a proxy in the middle of the map. It's not even going to be a normal Hellion timing, because physically you can't do that if you go command center first. So, but I assume ByuN will send out some sort of scout by the time he wants to send in medevacs and Marines. But we will see. Even splitting his Marines, 2 Marines is not rare. Any more just gives away this is a Marine build. And Rogue doesn't know that. Well, he doesn't know there are Marines. He would know it's a Marine build. It's not complicated. I don't need to explain. This is over-explaining. But there's plenty of time to explain this on a map of this magnitude. 4-player map where both players are going for about the max amount of bases early. I say as ByuN has only 2 yet again. I assume he'll take a 3rd, but it's not a guarantee. And the latest lair by far from Rogue so far. As we are getting to the 4-minute mark and he's just continuing to build the queens. I was checking for our battle report, but no. A temporal distortion. The queen. Slapping an inject into the 3rd base. And everyone just going about their business on our admittedly beautiful and idyllic abandoned temple. And it could be quite a period of buildup. Now, as we've seen from both of the... Actually, no. Not this series. But in general. The longer it takes to build up, the more dramatic the eventual explosion into action will be. Or at least that's what they tell me. So, as ByuN, once again, going for a bunch of Marines with a couple medevacs, and it hasn't failed him really thus far. The Overlord is not in position to spot this moving out. I think he wanted to keep it safe. But that means... Well, ByuN doesn't know where Rogue is. He sees a Zergling at the watchtower. Maybe he saw the Overlord. Or he's seen units move out. Either way. This is also the closest position. Scanning forward. It's just a bunch of queens. More Zerglings on the way. No upgrades for either side, at least the basic ones. The stim, the queens will have to hold the line. And, well, no combat shield. And for ByuN, no engineering. He just slapped down a couple engineering base, which leaves him in a awkward spot, since the first group of Marines has not really gotten anything done. Rogue has been more than willing, maybe too willing, to cut workers and build up units throughout this series so far. But it's paying off for him. And Mutas seem to be the choice. Rogue opting for it. And, well, slams a Widow Mine. The main base, 4 Marines and a Widow Mine. A queen will be assassinated. But this is a surprisingly difficult battle group to dislodge. And by the time he gets there, of course, he's just going to pick up and move away. And there we are. One goes down on the extraction, but they're not going to get as many credits back into the ship. It happens. Meanwhile, ByuN 3rd Command Center is done. Barracks 4 and 5. Now in production. But Rogue... I don't know I said it like that, but Rogue... better. A Mutalist Den. A Spire. I kept wanting to say lair, and that would clearly be true, but the Spire is now done with 7 Mutas banked up. And very notably, no upgrades on the way. Of course, ByuN's upgrades were pretty severely delayed. Another queen. But the Banelings, the wrap around the back, holds him down, knocks him out. The 3 Marines are back in the main base. No queens there to stop him. And we'll just pick up and move around. I think he might spot the Spire just a few seconds before the mutas pop out, which gives him that bit of extra warning. He can slap down the turrets back at home. He can slap down the yeah. But reacting to the mutas as opposed to being proactive puts you in a very awkward spot as Terran, especially with so much ground to cover between you and your opponent's base. ByuN is pretty much locked into playing defense now. He doesn't have the army to attack and also deal with the mutas reliably. Rogue. Mutas, Zerglings. Does he already have Baneling speed? Indeed he does. ByuN is going to try to move out. But there are so many. There's 46 Zerglings. Alright, I guess that's not so many. Going to the middle of the map. The speed zones will help it along. But more Banelings in production. ByuN does have an upgrade advantage. But there's so much space between the bases. The mutas could be anywhere. We can narrow it down with the watchtower, but the watchtower doesn't really cover that much of the map. The mutas, you know, are going to be flapping around just out of vision. That same air unit bonus, though the medevacs are equal. And the mutas and legs, and he left the door open! Oh no! And the Zerglings get into the main, the mutas! The missile turret only zoning out part of the mineral line. Didn't expect him to work from the inside out. And ByuN is going for something of a base trade here. But his own base is already taking terrible, terrible damage. The mutas are not part of the fight. The Banelings, queens with plenty of energy. More Banelings on the way. There's only a few siege tanks. The mutas are flapping back. Will he wait? But why? He's on creep. He can get on top of everything. The medevacs are already almost dead. The mutas participating. The Banelings undercover. And there's not nearly enough Marines. He just melts right through. And the Muta-ling-bane clears the field. And Rogue, about to drag us to match number 5, turns it around and decisively beats ByuN down. That match more one-sided than a Mobius strip as Rogue just dismantles him in the most old-fashioned way possible. The Muta-ling-bane against Marine Tank. ByuN, such a predictable style. Believe it or not, ByuN going command center first to do a bunch of Marines and medevacs. You wouldn't be making much on a bet there, but you'd be making something, I guess. Just like ByuN and his Marines. He has yet to build a Banshee in this entire series. Which, there's one more chance, one opportunity. We capture it. Or potentially let it slip. Exarch, yet another 4-player map for the decider. Will Rogue hold his ground and find his way around? And a mixed bag for both sides, with ByuN and Rogue both taking big macro games and kind of one-sided early timings. So it could really go either way. And like I mentioned, currently almost dead even in their career histories. Though I believe ByuN is a little bit higher ranked overall, but that's only because Rogue really sucks against Protoss. Like, it's bad. If you're wondering why we don't see Rogue at the final rounds of tournaments more often, is Zerg versus Protoss is kind of an outlier, even amongst the Zergs who are struggling across the board, so... But I digress. No Protoss here today. Glad to see it, right? So you made it this far. I didn't... Not to be spacist, but... The tentacle's gonna get all toasty. Okay. This can't be healthy. The Overlord hanging out. Did he spot the command center and... No? How does he know? He may have seen the SCV scout come out. I'm not sure. We have new technology to actually show the starting location. And also very interesting, a worker-only path to the third base. There's also the mineral wall, but you can get a worker to the third without going through it, which is a simple but super... Oh, this map also has tubes! Worker-only tubes, but I think they all are. It's just this one demonstrating it. We've got the tubes between the bases. Again, unless you're going to do a drone or SCV rush, which I am waiting. Somebody will try it once, and it'll work somehow. And then it'll never, ever happen again. It probably shouldn't have happened that one time. Also, a very interesting wall at the natural here. And by that I mean barely something close to it. As the Queens struggling to deal with the Reaper, just kind of walking up. Triple. Oh, ByuN. It's worked for 16 years. It'll work for 16 more. Which is most people's retirement plan, but good luck with that. The Reaper. Well, the Zerglings will eventually... He's just going to try to get a little more information. Get off my creep! Are you okay, Brenda? No! I don't know what I expected. I don't... Sorry. Oh, the mid-map minerals. I've seen this map several times now, but some world tree bases here at the center with just a few minerals and a single gas next to them. I would love to see more kind of lighter bases where there's less minerals to work with, but unfortunately, for the most part, we haven't really tried it. My instinct is that would favor the race that can float their buildings around to quickly take advantage of it without exposing themselves to a tough position. But we haven't really tried, so... Terrans, by the way, in case you weren't putting it together. It's gonna be mass marine, literally mass marines. Just a bunch of marines. The factory is so late. He's getting, instead of medevacs, he's just gonna get upgrades for the marines. Which... ByuN. He's gonna open up the mineral wall, which has, what, 30 mineral? 25. I believe that's one mule trip. Or 5 trips from the SCVs. We'll eventually get there. Rogue spotted it. Creep. Really making progress. A very late layer. Almost twice as far into the game as we saw a couple ago. Does he know ByuN's going for mass marines? No, but he knows it's ByuN. So, and he saw already plenty of marines with his overlord. So it's either, it's a medevac timing. The only question is exactly when and how many. Or whether he went for upgrades beforehand or he went for the medevacs quicker. And as time goes on, it becomes more and more clear which of those it is. The upgrades, of course. With medevacs, really, those first 2 you should be sending out the moment you get them. The main advantage is mobility. And if you don't use it, you might as well have gone for the upgrades anyways. With the small exceptions of if they're being even more aggressive than you. Which is not the case in this case. Layer is done. Baneling speed. Baneling's... Thank you. Baneling speed at top priority. Another... It seems we're getting... We went from one of the most aggressive early mid games to continually more macro-roni here. ByuN. I had my fun. The Overlord is taken down. Another one? Wow, by the Angel of Light. Pushed up against the worker tubes. But the double drop over the rocks. The queens, though, will drive it back. It's going to be a lot of damage taken. And there's not much separating them. 2 bases, 1 screen. Which is going to be quite a sloppy video if we continue down this road. But it looks like ByuN is going to make it a much more direct path. Changeling taken out. But it should be pretty clear to Rogue. Actually, well, you should know there's... You don't get a notification if the rocks are being taken down, but now he's moving in. Hydra's on the way. ByuN gonna strike at the base to the north. Targets a couple Banes, and will drop towards the main. But there's a single spore call to discourage it, but... The queens? Yeah, come here. Let them eat creep! Okay, Marie. I don't know. Don't make it weird. I don't know. Marines tucked back against the minerals in the center, but the Hydras are revealed in dramatic fashion. Doesn't quite pick off the medevac, but was dangerously close. Meanwhile, the Hydra... Well, Rogue kind of has everything. Does he have an infestation pit? No. Does he have a hive? No. Everything on lair tech that he could want. Because infestation pit... You know what? He has a lot of stuff. I'm gonna be more realistic. Though ByuN has a similar-sized army, and that looks like a pretty difficult position to dislodge. Rogue may just give up this base, as there's just a lane here full of Terran. And engaging into that angle seems... optimistic at best. A double drop to the south. The queens may be in position to deflect. Infestation pit and lurker den now on the way. As Rogue reaching for more late game options. ByuN not reaching for anything else. He's got Marines, he's got tanks, he's got medevacs. A few mines sprinkled in there for flavor. That flavor, salt. Hydra speed not quite done yet, but the Marines a little bit late on the pickup. And with Hydra's... Oh no, ByuN looking the other way because of the main attack. Siege tank, an awkward fight. ByuN, though, suffering more losses than he makes gains overall, but reinforcements coming in. Too many banelings. Did he just unburrow some of them? Wait a second. Banelings came from both sides in an unexpected fashion. I think he burrowed but then missed. Yeah, he missed the actual burrow bane explosion because he was looking the other way. Well, he kind of hit it, but still a lot more exploder rating than I expected. And now ByuN's down 35 supply at the worst possible moment. Okay, the worst possible moment would be if Rogue had actually gotten his hive on time. I expected him to have a hive done, but he did start it until this moment. He's building lurk. It would be terrible if lurkers with speed were on the way. It's marginally less if lurkers without range are on the way. I meant range. Okay, I swear. ByuN with a very forward base. Gonna park on Rogue's front lawn. And if Rogue doesn't mine through... This is a weird situation, because if he doesn't mine through this mineral wall, he may never actually have that angle. Oh no, Rogue didn't think of it. That mineral wall is actually a huge deal. Oh no. Oh wow. The terrain here might be working against ByuN in dramatic or working for ByuN in dramatic fashion. The lurkers, they don't have range, but the Marines still coming around a very awkward angle. Oh no! Well, the Marines just discombobulated here. Going both sides and getting ripped apart. To shreds, I say. And ByuN still down 40 supplies. Still no ghosts, no liberators, and not that many siege tanks. 1 siege tanks. The Widow Mines may help, but the numbers are thinning dramatically. The Hydras and lurkers. No range, but again, without the tanks, there's nothing that outranges them. 14 Marines at a time. He's already lost 100 of them, which is honestly lower than I expected when I brought that up. The drop, this is a planetary. The main base, but it smacks of desperation. The lurker count is growing, and once range is done, it's going to be effectively impossible. He sieges up the tank too close. It's just a couple shots. Widowmine dragged out. Well, Rogue is trickling in. It's just Marines. Range is 12 seconds out. Oh my. The drop of doom. But he re-angles towards the natural. One medevac take. Oh, where are you going? Where are you going? The banelings, the queens are too thick. But the banelings eventually slip through. And ByuN taps out. ByuN unwilling to adapt his strategy. And it becomes too brittle. And breaks underneath Rogue's very adaptable style. Seeing mutas, lurkers mixed in. We had ultras. We had such a spread of Zerg. Even if not always the creep. And Rogue leading us on quite a journey. And for a while, it looked like ByuN might be his usual Terran self, just ripping through with the same build, making Marines look too tough and too strong. But they weren't too much. And Rogue wins 3 games to 2. And I hope you enjoyed at least a fraction as much as I did. Hope it made your day at least a little bit better. Thank you to Wardy and the Team Liquid map contest for yet another amazing set. And make sure to check out on TL.net. Voting will be open soon. I haven't actually set it up yet as we're recording this, I don't think. Right, Jimmy? This is your job. But thank you for watching. If you got the means of motivation, be awesome to check out Patreon or YouTube membership. But I hear liking and subscribing is still free, at least for now. As is checking out the second channel, Winter Gaming TV, if you want streams and more RTS content, strategy games in general. And if you don't, okay. Fine. But thank you to our Mule Tier patrons, Brig Jiggy, Devin Door, Kate Motosuit, and thank you for watching. Certainly hope you enjoyed. Make sure to check out this video as well. Jimmy picked out just for you. Hope to see you next time. Good luck, have fun. Stay chill.